our Zoom best practices. Totally caught you in the act. I'm sorry, Natasha. Okay. So everybody, thank you for your input. I could not ask for a group of closer readers. Really close. This morning, Barbara actually gets the award for closest reader. She caught 2 small paragraphs that were in 11-point typeface instead of 12. So Barbara gets the award, and thank you, really seriously. And but the biggest thank you go to all of you guys for the compromise factor here. I think it's going to be fair to say when we go to full board that we duked it out among ourselves and that no one person got everything they wanted. And the best example of that is that I want initial and final roll calls and we don't have it. And I think Jay's got a pretty long list of things he did not get. So thank you, everybody. And I know Jay's going to say now it's not necessary, but thank you. I really appreciate it. A lot of hard work. So if there are no significant changes or any additional changes, what I'd like to do is move to do a resolution to approve the bylaws. Do an actual vote. We have an actual quorum. The committee, the task force is 5 members, and we have 4 of us here, so that's a quorum. Jay, yes.
No, I had a couple. I'm sorry, but
Okay.
a couple of like minor
Okay.
grammatical things that I think you need to.
Okay. Let me.
Can I quickly run through them?
Yeah. Let me. Max, if you make me a co-host, I can share my screen, maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
Darn. 9:04. I thought we were done.
Yeah. No. So the first.
Hold on. I was going to go birding.
You should be good now.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
The first one, page 5.
Page 5. Hold on. Okay, page 5.
Right at the top, number 9.
Okay.
On the second line before the word candidacy.
Yep.
You should put in like his/her, of course, after announcing candidacy, just grammatically.
Oh, wrong. Sorry. Okay, great. I actually, this is an interesting point. I'm glad you brought this up, Jay. I have a friend who ran for comptroller and did not make it. But so I reached out to her and she put me in touch with the campaign manager to say, okay, what are the trigger points? And I was sort of touched because I told him what we were doing, and he said he applauded it, and he said that he knows of a community board member who's running for the assembly and is in a position of some considerable, significance in the community board world, and he thinks that this is a great thing, and that all the other community boards should do it. So
Good.
I don't think any other board has this in their language, but I think it's really good. So next.
Page 10.
Yep.
3H3.
Yep.
Board members may attend any committee meeting.
Got it. Yep.
Page 12. A4.
Yep.
4, number 4.
Okay.
Public affairs, which should be deleted, and it just should be
No comma. Got it.
shall be. Otherwise, it's just not right.
Do you like that phrase, as is the custom in their respective governmental bodies? That was your language.
Well, I think we discussed.
It was your idea.
Frankly, I don't think we need it.
Okay.
But if anybody asks why 3 minutes,
Okay.
then you can explain that this is what they do.
Okay.
So.
Do we want to see reports or report?
Where's it?
It's
Officials. Well,
Number 4,
I
last
think it's
word.
grammatically okay either way. I personally like reports, but
I think it should be plural because public officials reports.
yeah.
I think, yeah, it
Okay.
should be plural.
Or Barbara, do you mean the second reports?
Yeah, the second one.
Per report. Oh, sorry. There. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I thought you were talking about. You're right, Barbara.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
And the last one I have is on page 15. 2 D, the opportunity to present themselves. I just think 3 minutes is not enough for people to, speak on their candidacy. And I think it should be 5 minutes.
Everybody agree?
It ends up that way anyway, in this way.
I don't know. I thought 3 minutes was more than enough, actually, because they also have written statements, so, and it does take up a long time. By that time, we pretty much know who the people are, the candidates who are running. It just seems like a long time.
Natasha, you want to break the tie here?
I'm okay with 5 minutes. But the 5 minutes should be really like enforced with a clock or something, because we don't want the 5 minutes to end up into 10 minutes. I think the 3 minutes do end up turning out to be much longer, but if you're giving them more time, then they should be held to it.
How about 4 minutes?
That's what I said. Do you want to flip a coin or compromise?
Well, I mean, you could say 3 minutes and then it's going to go over, but I do know people who have actually prepared it and written it out and then timed it. So I think it's unfair to do that and then have somebody else go on over.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with whatever you guys want. Max?
My idea for compromise was to split it and go 4, but I think 3 or 5, either can work.
Do you think written statements should be allowed at this point?
No, I'm just saying, I know people
This
who
is-
I know
this
people
is-
who run and they've written it out so that they make sure they're within the time limits. They don't get cut off. If I were running, I'd write it down and be prepared, but
I mean, they've already submitted something in writing about
right.
themselves. Do we really want them then to read that whole statement to us? Or is it more extemporaneous that we're really looking for?
Well, we
Somebody
do
who
have-
thinks well on their feet.
You do also have, after the people speak, you have Q&A if any members have questions. So it's, it's going to take a little time. Look, that's just my feeling. It'll be once every 2 years now instead of, once a year, a couple extra minutes, it seems. It's important enough, that's all. But whatever, whatever.
All right, well, I'll go with the flow. It's not that important to me.
That was just my
I agree with
feeling.
Jay.
so what's the consensus?
Well, Natasha, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your
I
last.
said I agree with Jay. I agree with
Okay.
you, Jay. I think 5 is okay with me.
I couldn't hear you, Natasha. I'm sorry.
She said 5 is
I
okay.
said 5 is okay.
Okay.
Natasha, it's very hard to hear you lately. I don't know why, but considering our Parks
Okay.
meeting is coming up.
Yeah. I'll try to get headphones. Maybe that might be better.
Well, that's better already.
Maybe just sit closer to the computer.
Yeah, I think so.
Is this better?
A little better.
Okay.
Okay, so 5 minutes?
Fine.
But
Okay.
5 minutes.
Okay, great. What else do we have?
That's it?
Okay. Natasha, any more changes? And were you okay with the way I implemented the changes you suggested?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Max, any changes?
No.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So while I'm screen sharing, let me show you what I was hoping to present at the full board, or not at the full board, but provide with the bylaws. And this is just a rough version of it. Can you guys see this?
No.
We're still on the same.
Attendance and excused absences?
New share. Okay, got it. New share.
Do you have to take down what you have up?
There. Got it?
No. Yeah.
Okay, so this is just the content. It's not formatted at all, but what it would be the various topics that we've changed it, and I'm using attendance as an example. So it's what the topic is, it's attendance, what our current bylaws say, which is a substantial part of the meeting, and 7 absences without any 12 months. Otherwise, it's cause for removal. What the Manhattan Borough President's template says, which is first and last roll call, and then what all the other community boards say. So for example, CB1 says if you miss 4 full board meetings in 1 year or 3 consecutive committee meetings or 25% of committee meetings, and you're in trouble. Committee board 2 is vague. 3 says if you're absent from 1/3 or more of the meetings during 6 months, there's a letter sent, and so on. And as I said, this is in my chicken scrawl of what it all is. So I would clean this up. But what I would propose is some clean way to do a document that sends out to people like, okay, here's the topic, here's what we have now, here's what the borough president's template said, and here's what everybody else does. And this is, and then finally the last column would be, the rationale for why we're changing it. Barbara, you look like
I think these will read like red flags unless, you keep this in your back pocket and be prepared to show this on your screen when people have concerns about it.
Okay.
Because otherwise they're going to be sure to nitpick this. I don't think it's too much to ask every board member to read these 19 pages thoroughly and to come up with their own concerns rather than send a separate document with things that I think are going to be controversial.
Okay. That's why
that's my opinion.
I actually agree with Barbara too. The more information and comparisons, then, you could open up a floodgates. Well, CB3 does it this way. Why don't we do it this way?
Okay.
Oh, I agree. I would keep it in reserve to explain or defend if you have to.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's less work for me because I have it right. I have a big thing right now of all the topics and everything, and I understand it, but nobody else would. And if I was in the car, I wouldn't understand it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Any thoughts? Also, do you guys want to vote? Yes.
So I just wanted to ask once we vote and hopefully we get it unanimously approved. So what's the next step? You're going to send the bylaws out to the board. Max is going to send it out with the full board materials, or?
Yeah.
I think we should actually send it out in advance of that because it is such a long and important document. I would say once we vote on it, we should send it out now, basically. But I'll talk to Stephen about that. But certainly send it out well in advance of the meeting so people can look at it. And then if they have any comments, I would encourage them to come back to me with it. So we don't have to duke it out at full board. Thoughts on that?
Let me know once you decide when you'd like to send it out, and then I'll surely do so. Just know, I think Steve might only be available today and tomorrow, and then early next week he may not be if you want to get in touch with him.
Right, I know he's out next week. So I mean, that's my sort of thinking. And then I was thinking that I might reach out to the people who worked on the last bylaws, specifically Roberta, because I know she had a lot of ownership. Jay, you were on the last committee, but reach out, and Diller, reach out to those folks and talk to them about it. Make sure they get a copy. So that would be basically just. Oh, Jay, you were not on it. I'm sorry.
Yes, I was.
That's weird. Oh, it's just the chair. I'm sorry. So reach out to the people who are on. I'm looking at the back page. It's just got Diller was chair and the co-secretaries and Roberta is the bylaws chair. At any rate, reach out to those folks and make sure they understand how we did this and see if I can get some buy-in before the meeting to try to, reach out to as many people as possible.
Yeah, procedurally, it was a little easier last time because unlike this time, we worked with the previously existing bylaws. So, there was a lot more that could just be addressed as this is the same, this is the same, this is a whole different template and so forth. So I think it's going to require some more time for the people that, however many people really look at it and read it through, it's going to take more time than the last time.
I think that's a fair point. What will help it a bit is that we've updated the whole board as we've gone along, that our starting point was the Manhattan Borough President's template. And also I've incorporated much of anything in the language from CB7's current bylaws that was not covered. It's all been transferred in. That's what was done in the last revision. So I think a lot of that material is in there. And so people should feel comfortable with that.
You have more faith than I do.
We'll see. But does that sound like a good plan, folks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we should give a little bit more than a few days notice. What's the date of the next
May 3rd.
May 3rd? And this is, yeah, it's getting fairly close. I think a week in advance or 10 days in advance is probably plenty.
Okay. And I think we've reached out sufficiently to ask for input from folks. And the only person I've heard from with some disappointment is Beverly Donahue. Beverly's made some really great suggestions. We've incorporated them. That's where the treasurer came from. But we reached out to the full board a number of times by email to ask for input in an unlimited basis. And so we haven't gotten any. So I think that's, if people had wanted to, they could have reached out. And a number of people have attended the meetings. So we've had some good coverage there as well. So I think I'm hopeful that this will go through pretty smoothly.
Let me ask a question, please. In the headings of affiliations and conflicts of interest, once presumably it all goes into effect and we vote in favor of these bylaws, what do we do at a meeting when Howard begins to talk, or Sarah or somebody else, and they don't give their affiliation? How do we handle that? Do we say a point of order or something?
Yeah, absolutely. That's not a new thing. That's in the current CB7 bylaws. It's article, I think it's Article 1, Section B, number 4. It's affiliations. You're required to disclose if before speaking or if you don't speak before voting. So that's not a new thing, and it should be a point of order. I think the issue there is that we haven't been not enforcing that, but we haven't been relying on that, and that's been
not at all. No,
Yeah,
not at
always,
all.
absolutely right. It's always been there. It's in the model.
And
It's
it's
been
everybody,
around.
I mean, Andrew Ridgey, Andrew Albert. We have a lot of people who do have affiliations, professional affiliations.
And that's one of the strengths of the board, is that people bring their own, areas of expertise, but that's something that should be disclosed, because regardless of what your affiliation is, it needs to be disclosed. I think another thing that we're going to really hope to change is the notion that before speaking, public speakers need to identify themselves, whether they live in the district, they work in a district, or they have some other affiliation. Because as I've mentioned to a number of people, the only public speaker at the last full board meeting about the topic of remote meetings was somebody who lives in Canada and has lived there since 2009. This is not somebody who moved there during the pandemic. I mean, I could give some allowance for that. The only public speaker lives in St. John's, Newfoundland, which is far, it's as far east as you can get in Canada. It's almost in Europe. So that's that should be disclosed. You can have some input there, but that should be disclosed.
Absolutely.
It's part of it, Susan, is a result of, when we have live meetings and people had to sign in on a form, they had to list their address. And
Right.
if they were representing an organization and stuff. So that if we go back to live meetings, to some extent, that takes care of itself. But I mean, I wholeheartedly agree that, people should indicate where they live and if they have an affiliation. But as I said, that was kind of routinely taken care of at live meetings.
I had a question about the disclosure of affiliations.
Sure.
I guess context is important, right?
Can't
Can
hear
hear
you
me?
again.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Did
No.
you check your audio settings?
Let me go look for headphones, and I'll be back in 1 minute.
Okay. Jay, back to what you were saying though, in the past when we were in person, the person would write that on the form, but the rest of the board didn't necessarily hear that. So I think what we need is more rigor and more discipline about when the person stands up to speak saying, hi, my name is John Doe or Jane Doe, and I either live or work in the district, or I have an affiliation because I'm, whatever I do. I think that's really critical to get in the habit of announcing.
I agree. I mean, that can be live meetings. It's easy because you can just make an announcement, say, when your turn comes, please give us your address and any organization that you're here on behalf of, then people will do it.
Right. Natasha, is that better?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Much better.
All right, okay, problem solved. I was saying about the affiliations, I guess context is important, right? Like if Andrew Ridgie wants to say something about a topic that has nothing to do with restaurants, does he still need to disclose his affiliation?
No,
Right?
No,
So
no.
it's just about,
yes,
yeah.
But I mean, Andrew's a lovely guy. This is a really easy, uncontroversial, I hope, way to use this as an example. If Andrew Ritchie wants to talk about restaurant sheds in the street, I think it's appropriate that he talks about what his job is.
yes.
And why haven't we enforced this up until now, though? And what makes you think anybody is going to?
Well, a few years ago, I raised the issue on, as you might guess, a bicycle lane discussion. And at that time, as Susan said, the bylaws have always required that. And I raised it, and for that meeting and maybe one more, a couple of members announced their affiliation, and then it disappeared and nobody bothered with it. I think partly because I think the assumption was everybody knows what the affiliations are, but and that's not an excuse, but that's what happened. It was raised once or twice over the years, and occasionally people did it, but then it just faded away. So yeah, I mean, it has to be part of the consciousness of the people running the meetings, whether it's the chair or the committee.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the premise, like we all know, like, yes, we all know, but who's there from the public who doesn't know? And that's not fair because
Right.
you're
No, I agree. I mean,
So
people
I think
should
it's-
know. I mean, you're likely to get into more interpretive and sometimes difficult decisions when, for example, Andrew is one that you mentioned. We have a couple of people who are paid advocates for organizations where their organizations are actively taking positions on things that come before the board. And in many instances, those people who, once they disclose the affiliation, will be allowed to participate in the discussion, but not allowed to vote. And, you know, if we reach a point where whoever's chairing the committee or the full board chair, you know, is aware of it, says, you know, if they attempt to vote, you know, there just may be instances now where those concerns have to be raised, because there have definitely been instances where certain people should not be voting because they are affiliated formally with organizations that advocate on positions before the board, take positions on items before the board, and they, as I said, none of the bylaws, the past bylaws, the proposed bylaws, the model bylaws, none of them prevent, and I think it's an important point, Susan, if it comes up, is there's nothing about any of this, you know, as you said, you know, affiliations are, you know, we want people with diverse backgrounds and diverse affiliations and interests on the board. And it's important to always keep in mind that affiliations that may prevent a vote, nothing ever prevents somebody from being on the board, even on a committee that deals with the subject matter of the organization there. The only time it really kicks in, well, it kicks in two instances. One is on some issues they can't vote. And secondly, according to the rules, the New York City rules and the Conflict of Interest Board rules, in some instances, they cannot chair the committee, can be a member. And we do have a couple of instances where people, in my opinion at least, according to, and forget the bylaws, according to the rules, according to the charter and the Conflict of Interest Board rules, should not be chairing certain committees. And, you know, that's a decision that already should have been made, and I think will have to be made by the board chair, by the executive, in consultation with the executive committee. And I haven't pushed for the decisions, and as far as I know, no one else has, but there are people who, under existing law, are not qualified to co-chair committees, and at some point, it's going to have to be dealt with.
I mean, the issue is that it's two things. If you're running if you're chairing the committee, then you're setting the agenda, and that's undue influence for that person. That's the issue.
Exactly.
And the other thing is, if you're running the meeting, you can put it at the end of the agenda. You can do other things that really just, tip the scales of justice, if you will. So I think that this is just a question of discipline. If you want to bring it back to my birdwatching experience, I don't always clean off my binoculars before I go birdwatching. It's something I used to do when I started. So now sometimes I go out and they're kind of cruddy. So, when I go out this morning after this meeting, I'm going to clean them off. And I think that all of us should feel empowered, as having worked on this for 2+ years, that, Barbara, to your question, if you want to say point of order, the bylaws say blah, 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 and call it. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, Paige does wonderful work with Landmark West, but there was a concern that she could not chair the preservation committee because of that. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is. Andrew Albert is a civilian member of MTA board. He's a great guy, but it might be a conflict of interest to have him co-chairing transportation. I don't know. It's something that has to be considered.
Andrew's.
What about Howard? We have Howard.
Well, Howard's the easiest.
I think it's not appropriate to discuss individual people. I'm just giving examples. I think, as I said, Andrew Ritchie is a really nice, clean example of, he's the head of the hospitality organization. So for Andrew Ritchie to talk about restaurant sheds, without disclosing his role, for anybody who hasn't ever met him and doesn't know him, it would be better if he did that. What we're trying to avoid is the appearance of impropriety. So we want to be, above we want to make sure that we're on the right side of it. So any other areas you think would be a concern?
Well, Susan, just to finish up in that regard, I think that once the new bylaws are adopted, and hopefully they will be without too much fuss, I think it may be a good idea at some point, and this would fall on Stephen, so you probably should discuss it with him, to just make an announcement for the board members that, and say that, this has always been a requirement. And I just want to remind everybody going forward that those of you who have, serious affiliations with stuff, just a reminder that when something comes up that your organization is deeply involved with or advocating for and so forth, that you are required to announce your affiliation and so forth. And we've kind of let it slide for a long time, but going forward, I think we should all be aware of it.
It just occurred to me, so HHS was going through a rather choppy period about a year ago, and Catherine DeLazaro reached out to me and said, would you mind coming to one of our meetings? Because she was going to make an announcement at the beginning of the meeting about courtesy and respect and how the meeting should run, and reference the bylaws. And so I think maybe what Stephen or the chair might want to do is the same way as when you go to a movie, they say, or any event, they say, please turn off your phone. At the beginning of the meeting, we might want to say, and this is one of my personal pet peeves, Article 1, Section B, number 2 in our current bylaws, treat others with respect and courtesy. Members are expected to treat other board members, members of the community, and representatives of city, state, federal agencies, elected officials, and all others with respect and courtesy while acting in their capacity as board members. I mean, I personally feel like, while acting in his capacity as a human being, but whatever, while you're at the board and you're representing the board, you need to do that. So maybe that's something that should get read at the beginning of the meeting. There are community boards in other places that actually have the Pledge of Allegiance before the meeting. It's amazing to see. So there are things that we could do at the beginning of the meeting to set the standards and say, listen, if you haven't, we need to hear from you before you speak. If you live in a district, you work in a district, or you have another affiliation for public speakers. And I don't know that we need to ask your exact address. That might be a violation of privacy, but at least to hear them affirm that they live in the district, work there, have an affiliation. And then for anybody on the board, before speaking or voting, if you have an affiliation that's relevant to this topic, please disclose it. So I think that might be a good thing to say at the beginning of the meeting, and then all
Yeah.
4 of us can feel free to step forward, and the parliamentarian.
Yeah.
And if they don't live or work in the district, they can still speak. It's just it's
just
a disclosure.
You just need to say, I live in
information.
Paris, but I used to live in New York, and I really care. I'm hoping to come back someday, but I don't live here. I haven't been here for 15 years. I have no idea what's going on in the district. I haven't been there in 20 years.
Yeah.
So, okay. Do we think
Should we call the vote?
what's that?
Should we call the vote?
Yes, absolutely. Want to call the vote? Okay, so we have, as I said before, the task force is 5 members. It was 6 for most of the time we were doing this, but Josh stepped down because he became the co-chair of another task force. So we have 5 members of the task force. There are 4 members here, so we have a quorum. So let's call the vote. And the vote is a resolution to support the revised bylaws. Jay Adolf,
Yes,
say you.
yes,
Yes. Barbara Adler,
Yes.
Natasha Kazmi,
I approve, yes.
Susan Schwartz, yes. Okay. Okay, guys. So job well done. Thank you so much. Wow.
That was easy.
well, thanks.
Birding. Okay, Max, thank you so much for your help. So I will
Of course.
forward the meeting minutes for these last 2 meetings together, and the final resolution, and the final draft. And I will talk to Stephen about going forward how to approach this at full board. I think the sooner we send this out, the better, so we can get
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, can you just clarify that advance submissions of comments would be really appreciated instead of hashing everything out at full board?
Yeah. So when we get that, are we comfortable if we get suggestions just dealing with it by email? I think that'd be okay, because we're working pretty well by email. Okay. So I'll just make whatever revisions, and then I don't think we need a new vote. There won't be significant changes, I don't think. But if we do, we'll call an emergency meeting before the full board, and we'll vote again. How's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, or I mean, if it's just grammatical stuff or minor stuff, you can do a quick amendment to at the meeting.
Okay.
Certainly anything non-controversial.
The one thing, if we have, what I'd like to avoid is, I do not want to have a situation where people are presenting amendments left and right, and they've got things written up, and we're suddenly in a flurry. I don't do well in that situation. I wind up like a deer in the headlights. We've worked too long and too hard on this. So if it gets to that point at full board, what I'm going to do is say, okay, we'd like to take it back to the committee and have us be able to all calmly, in the fullness of time, look at it and make sure, what direction we want to go. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to be having 50 people or 32, whatever number is there, drafting it all at once together at the last minute after we worked on it for 2.5 years.
I agree. It'll
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, great.
Organizationally, it's
Yeah.
better.
Okay. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank
Enjoy the
you.
sunshine. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you change the sound setting on your end at all during the course of this meeting?
No, I didn't actually. Did
Oh.
something change?
Yes, the sound got much better, both for Natasha and for Jay. So I
Huh.
find Jay is also low. I don't know if it's short on my computer. It might be.
It might be that I turned off the fan in the back of my room.
No, it wasn't that. It just got much better for me, but
But I'm wearing headphones now. I think that made it.
no, I know, but it was after the headphones too, where you increased in volume, but it may just be my computer. I just wondered if, okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Okay.